Hey everyone, how's it going? Name is Raf Winterpacht. I've been with Perficient for a couple of months now. I come from a lot of work with Adobe. And what I wanted to show you today was this new add-on for AEM as a cloud service, which is called Content Automation. So it's not exactly that new, actually. I had taken part in a beta a couple of years ago and worked with Adobe on giving them feedback about some of the functionality for this. It's really a great add-on. It has to do with AEM assets, and I'll go into some of the details about what content automation is in a little bit. Let me switch over to Lightroom, and I'll show you kind of what a typical sort of flow for someone who works in Lightroom as a creative would be. Okay, so this is Lightroom. So this is somewhere where you would go in and you sort of have a catalog of images in here, right? So the catalog of images is where somebody like a creative would go in and they would, flag some of these different images for use for production, for example. These particular images that I'm going to show you here are from a place in Chicago called the Rookery, and they have this beautiful staircase. And I was at a wedding there actually last summer, and I was able to, sneak up there and take a few pictures of the staircase, which turned out really nice actually. So what would happen then is you would have something like an image here. So let me do something like export this. So when I export this, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to have this, custom name that I would associate with that. And then once I get that name, that's what the images that I would bring into AEM, right? So I'm just going to put a demo in here and say export. So now I got that in my pictures folder, right? There's some other settings that you can put in here too, like you can specify the quality of the image, you can specify how many pixels, per inch, you can specify, any kind of sharpening, what metadata do you want to include with this? So, a couple of different things that you can set up for this, right? So I'm going to export this. It's going to save this to my folders. You can see here. So now the next thing that I would do is I would go into AIM as a cloud service, right? Actually, to take a step back, what you might do is you might put this into something like a OneDrive, let a marketer see it, or let somebody who is, managing the content for a website. It could be a different author, right? They would typically, excuse me, they would typically go into that OneDrive folder, look at the image and make sure it was approved, ask for any other updates, and you have this sort of, iterations that would, get you a finalized image, right? That's typically, probably more of a likely use case. So once that image is finalized, you will go in here into assets. So I'm going to go into assets. I've got a folder in here where I've got some assets that I want to walk you through this this content automation process, right? So I'm going to go into content automation, and I have a folder in here where I'm going to show you what happens when I bring this image up here. Okay, so now I got that image. I had a different one here before, so let me do create, and I'm going to do files, and then I'm going to select that image that I had done for the demo. It's right here. And I say open. I can rename it if I want to, and I say upload. And once it's uploaded, what's going to happen now is that those microservices are going to get kicked off, right? So what it's going to do is it's going to extract the metadata. It's going to write it back to this file. It's going to also invoke the smart tag. So this is where Adobe Sensei comes in. So this is where the AI part of it comes in. And what it will do is it will analyze this image and it will create tags for you. It'll create these smart tags for you. And it will associate that with that image. The next thing it's going to do is it's going to create all these renditions for it too. So whatever renditions have been specified for this image, it will create that, right? So for this particular image, I already have a Lightroom filter that's been set up in here, what it will do is it will convert this to black and white, and then it will save that into a different process folder. Okay. So what you might have to do in this case is you would have to, go to, assuming that content automation wasn't in the picture, you would have to go back to the creative person. You have to say, hey, can you cut me a black and white version of this particular picture, right? In some cases, if you have something like dynamic media, then you can also use that to do that particular application at runtime, right? But in this case, we're talking about the authoring part of it. So this is in the creating the assets, sourcing the assets. So you would go back to the creative person and say, hey, can you make me a black and white version of that particular image? So I go back over here into Lightroom, and I would say, okay, so what I can do is I can apply this preset to this image, which will convert it to black and white. I created a simple one a little bit earlier. And what I can do is I can just say simple black and white. I select that, it converts it to black and white. Okay. Then I would have to export this file again. And now I would export this and I would say something like BW simple, for example. So now I exported that file, and I would have to go back over here into AEM, and then I would have to go to whatever folder that they wanted me to put it in, and I would have to upload that file, right? So that's like kind of, the typical use case for where content automation can come into play and, basically take that process out, right? So what if they came back and said, you know what, that wasn't the right image that I wanted you to process. I wanted to have, that other one, which is, like kind of a, portrait view. So now you can see where you start getting into the whole sort of back and forth, right? So maybe what would be easier is if I just brought that preset into AIM as a cloud service, and then I uploaded all the files that were marked for, like the pics, and then let AIM as a cloud service process those for me for black and white. So that's actually what I'm going to show you next here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create and upload those files. And I'm just going to select all of these, right? Because I'm assuming that that's what they want. So I select those. Okay, so I'm going to upload those. I'll replace the ones that are already there. And I'll let them upload all those files and let the microservices start kicking off. Again, extracting the metadata, writing it back to the files, creating all the renditions, and creating versions of that particular preset for me. We'll have to see. I was probably uploading too much, or these files are too big. That'd be my guess. But anyway, so you can see these files are uploaded here. The thumbnails have been created. Let me go into one here that I had not uploaded before. So I'll go into this one. So as you see, I've got a couple of different renditions that have been created here. So these are static renditions that get created from the microservices, and they get associated back to this particular file, right? And you can see there's one here which is called simple BW. So this is the preset that I had uploaded to AIM as a cloud service. So if I look at that, you can see there's a nice black and white rendition, a simple black and white rendition that has been created here for this particular asset. Again, this is not something that you would typically have been able to do and without that content automation. So you would have had to go back to something like Photoshop or whatever other editing software that could convert that to something like black and white, right? And this is a really simple example. There are more sophisticated examples too. So, we can certainly look at doing more of a deep dive into some of the other APIs that are available, but some of those are like the Photoshop actions, that's a whole thing. I mean, that's like a PSD file, Photoshop, like, you talk about, assets that are Photoshopped. It's a real big sophisticated sort of process in order to do that. This is a simple example, so it's great that they brought these APIs over into AIM as a cloud service. Another thing I'll show you too with AIM as a cloud service. So if I go into properties of this, it will show me the metadata that's been extracted and set to this. So you can see here there's a smart color tags, right? So it picked out those colors from here. And we've seen this before with other kinds of software. It'll pick out the colors of images that you bring in, right? But it's also got some smart tags in here. So the smart tags are what it looked at from Adobe Sensei. So that's where the AI came in and extracted those smart tags. You can also train your instance, right? So you can have your instance trained so that you set the tags and you give it a reference image, and it will be better and better about what those smart tags are. They're smart tags training, which is an AIM as a cloud service that can also, sort of improve some of those tags and improve the metadata that's associated with that.